Okay, so I think it would be good to talk about creating a safe space for your BAME members of staff, particularly when something has happened in the media that might affect those staff members. And this isn't something that has really happened before, where organisations have really thought about how watching people die on social media and TV might affect their BAME staff members. So first thing I think would be a good discussion is how everyone felt when George Floyd was killed. That would be a good way to start this conversation. What what was the team dynamic at that time? What were people thinking? And was there any support mechanisms in place for BAME members of staff? So taking minds back to when George Floyd was killed, was there any, maybe was there any thought given to members of staff, particularly BAME staff, and how they might have felt watching something like that happened, particularly since that wasn't an isolated incident. That is a long list of, several black men in particular that have been killed on social media, and it's something that people have normalized because we see it all the time. So how might that affect people? So how did you feel when George Floyd died, and what support mechanisms were available for staff at that time? Now you've had that discussion, I'd like you to think about, what if you would do anything differently, what might you do differently, and what do you think now? So if that was to happen now, um, do you think your response would be different to how you interact with your teams? Because I think it's what's really important is for us to recognise that we're all human beings, and even though some of these things might happen externally, we still have to carry this trauma into work and pretend like you know we're okay. And often that isn't what's happening. Many of these groups have been oppressed and have had to deal with physical and verbal racial abuse for centuries and for decades. So what might you do differently, and how can we support those staff members when things do happen? I think it's really important that we make sure that there's recognition, that we talk about things that have happened in the media, not necessarily to go to individuals within your team, but to make sure it's a subject that is on your agenda during your team meetings, and that what support mechanisms might be available for your staff. So we have Health Assured, which is counselling, to know that you can ask for time. Staff members may need time out in the day for their own mental health and well-being. Staff members might need a risk assessment done when they've experienced racism or trauma, or they've heard conversations within the office that really belittle and devalue the lives of people of colour. So think about what support mechanisms you could implement that are available to us internally.